today Fujifilm just released the 4.0 version of the X-Pro2 firmware. And this to me is just amazing because there's no other camera manufacturers out there, none, that release updates for firmware that add new features as often as Fujifilm. So Fujifilm, thank you so much for doing this. So now let me go through real quick the list of the specs. It's actually being recorded right now, this video, on the X-Pro2 with the new firmware. And it's the 4K with the external microphone, all that good stuff. So in addition to the 4K video, so it doesn't allow you to run an HDMI out to an external recorder, but that's fine. If you're just using this as a small camera to do travel photography, you're on vacation, or even if you're doing professional work, if you don't need the external monitor, then you don't really need that. It also supports tethered shooting, so USB or Wi-Fi, so you can wirelessly transfer your files to your computer, or you can plug a USB cable in and download the photos directly to your PC. It's got a new autofocus algorithm, so let's test that out real quick. Go ahead and back up and get in close. So you should be able to see it's autofocusing on me pretty quickly. Alright, so real quick. So compared to before, it would take a couple seconds, maybe 1.5 seconds to hunt to find the autofocus. I can't see what it looks like right now, but hopefully it's focused on me right now. Support for Fujifilm X-Raw Studio. This allows you to process the raw images exactly how they looked as the JPEG, but fine-tune the shadows and highlights, the grain, change film simulations, whatever you want to do with the raw file. You can, see how it looks with classic chrome versus Astia, Provia, Velvia, you name it, black and white, whatever. So Acros, of course, I love that. You can change all the dynamics of how the video, or not the video rather, but the raw images, the photos look. Alright, so it also supports improved radio flash controller usability. So this is one of the things that's been hurting Fujifilm, in my opinion, especially with the X-T2. It's more of a studio type camera compared to the X-Pro2. However, I've been using the X-Pro2 longer than the X-T2 because I bought it before the X-Pro2 came out, or sorry, the X-T2 came out. And I was using the X-Pro2 in the studio, and I had to jerry-rig stuff. I had to stack triggers on top of each other. So for Fujifilm to finally be addressing this with studio photographers and other manufacturers, you got Elinchrom, Alien Bees, Paul C. Buff stuff. Godox is pretty good. They're definitely more compatible than most of the other brands with Fujifilm. But you've also got brands like Cactus, which is another company that's similar to Godox, and they came out with a high-speed sync trigger before any of the other brands did. I know there's like a Robo Trigger, I don't even know what it's called. I never tried it, but I've heard that also worked. Nissan also had a flash that was compatible with high-speed sync, but it was just so low power that in reality, when you're trying to use it outdoors to overpower the sun, there was really no point. You could use it inside, but again, why would you need high-speed sync to overpower the ambient light indoors? It doesn't make sense. So the whole Nissan thing, I never even tried it. I'm going for high power, high-speed sync. That's really what I need in my type of photography. So what works for you, cool, but for me, definitely not. Also supports Instax Share SP3. This is the new Square printer. So you can print directly to the Square printer, which looks more like an old Polaroid type of print instead of the mini Instax prints that are like the little 2x3. They're a little too small for my taste, so I'm definitely going to get one of the Square Instax printers. It looks awesome, and the new film emulsions that they use in the Instax print paper, like inside of it when it develops, is like at least twice as clear as it was before. When I looked at the old Instax film, it was just not that clear. But when you look at the new version, they've done some new magic. Again, Fujifilm, thank you for upgrading your equipment. This is definitely an upgrade. All right, so they've also added a RGB histogram and highlight warnings. So if you press the function button to allocate a histogram, so like you can set a certain function button on the camera, you can allocate that to RGB or highlight warning. So they basically, when you take a photo, if you're doing white seamless type photo, photography in the studio, you're going to see the edges of the subject on the white background blinking at you, which I used to use a lot when I was shooting with Nikon. So that's definitely a benefit. They also added the restart of autofocus function during a movie shooting. Autofocus can be done again by pressing the shutter button halfway during movie shooting. So let's say you're using not the continuous autofocus, but single point autofocus, and you're filming a video and you want to focus on something over there. You can move the focus point and hit the button, the focus button halfway to press the shutter release, and that's going to focus on that subject over there. Or if you're moving around, you're focused on this thing right here, and it's still, again, in single point autofocus. It's not continually tracking. And you move and pan over here, you can slightly depress that, and now it will instantly focus. It's kind of like back button focus, but this is, I'm sure you can even set that up in the menu by setting a button on the back of the camera to be your back button focus, and again, it will do the same thing. But I really got to commend Fujifilm for their video quality. Now, it may not be ProRes, 10 whatever, all these, high res stuff, but for just daily shooters, run and gun type stuff, and good quality now, mind you, at 4K, it's really, really awesome quality. What they do have with Fujifilm is if you're moving side to side, you don't get that wobbly jello stuff that you get with like every Sony camera out there. So Sony shooters, sorry, but Fujifilm's got you on that department. I'm waiting for them to come out with a in-camera F-log profile, so a flat profile. That'll be awesome. And then if they can, upgrade to the standard, which I think is 10.2.2 or something like that for the actual quality of the video. I'm not a super high spec video guy, but I do like to have as much information as possible, 150 megabits per second, whatever the case is. And I do have a Sony video camera that shoots in 4K, and it has a higher bit rate than the Fuji. But if you're putting stuff out on YouTube, nobody's really going to be able to see the difference anyway. You may get a little bit of detail more in the highlights, but the dynamic range on these Fujifilm cameras is pretty amazing. And for the trade-offs between dynamic range and the jello factor when panning, I think the downscaling from 6K down to 4K allows Fuji to avoid getting that crop, those jello pieces in there. It pushes them out to the side so you don't see them. And I'm definitely happy with this. Anyway, I just wanted to share the 4.0 is finally here for the X-Pro2, and I'm super excited. This is the first video that I've made using this, so I hope you enjoy it. And Fujifilm shooters, whoever's watching this, thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all later.